Okay, well, hello everybody and welcome. I'm guessing you can all hear me because I'm not stood out too far away from any of you. But thank you all very much for coming along to the Lancashire County Council Question Time event hosted by the Lancashire Evening Post. As I'm sure all of you are aware, on Thursday you will be having the opportunity to cast your vote to decide which political party runs Lancashire County Council. Now, if you weren't aware, Lancashire County Council is the authority which spends around 70% of the money you put into your council tax, so that hopefully underlines the important people we have before us here. Just to introduce our panel, we have Ian Fisher, who's from the UK Independence Party. We have Jenny Main, who's from the Labour Party. We have Sam Riches of the Green Party. Professor Bill Winlow of the Liberal Democrats, and County Councillor Jeff Driver from the Conservatives. What I'm going to do is ask you, each of the candidates, to give a short presentation to you, only a couple of minutes, to introduce themselves and what they're all about. Then we'll take a couple of questions that we've had sent in by readers, and then we'll open it up to the floor. So Ian, if I could maybe ask you to make your first introductory comments.
Okay, well, good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to say that I'm here representing UKIP on behalf of Fred McLeod, who unfortunately couldn't make it today. I'm a local businessman. I run a small business from Fulwood, delivering high-level qualifications to people in the construction industry throughout the UK. The reason why I'm here is I believe that the UKIP have common sense policies that local people understand and can relate to. Unfortunately, it's my opinion and the opinion of UKIP that the three mainstream parties are increasingly becoming out of touch with the electors. They continue to promote policies which rankle with voters, especially overseas aid, which I'm sure something we'll touch on today, and certainly our involvement with Europe. We believe people are fed up with the system, the political system in the UK, both nationally and locally. And over the weekend, as you've seen, we're increasingly frustrated by the negative campaigning that seems to be taking place in UK politics. That's targeted at individuals, it's targeted to snatch any votes that they can away from parties, which we believe takes away the opportunity for reasoned debate about national and local issues which affect voters on a day-to-day basis. And again, that's something we'll talk about later. Something that really is important to UKIP, and it's something that irritates me, that people often think that we're a one-policy party, and that's on immigration. The fact is that people really are worried about immigration, the impact on local services that are already overstretched. As we know, and as of recent debates have demonstrated, anyone that talks about immigration in terms of impact on resources is often considered to be either racist or xenophobic. I find that offensive personally. I'm neither racist nor xenophobic. What we want to do is debate about the services, the impact on the services, and how we can deal with them. UKIP, I believe, and this is why I joined UKIP relatively recently, gives people of Lancashire, certainly, hopefully the UK at a later date, the opportunity to break the cycle of insanity of voting for the same thing, the same people, over and over again, and expecting a different result, which, as we know, doesn't happen. Just to finish, UKIP will address local issues, which will be about local people, and make the necessary local changes to support the local community. That's what we are in the Lancashire branch, in the Preston branch of UKIP. It's about local people, local services, the local community.
Well, I'm Jenny Meehan, and I'm leader of the Labour group here at the County Council. I think what Ian has just said, I'm glad you mentioned local at the end, because actually we are here to talk about the County Council elections, not national government. And during the last Labour administration, in my final year, I was Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, and I do care passionately about the services that we provide for them. What I'd most like to see with an incoming administration is more money actually spent within Lancashire, more money invested to make more jobs, particularly for the young people. As we know, long-term unemployment amongst young people is actually rising, the 18 to 24-year-olds, and I would passionately believe that we need to give them a chance to get into work at an early age as possible. I'm also very, very concerned about the cuts that have happened with adult social care. particularly the Conservative administration actually raised the level of fair access to care, taking out the moderate band of people, which meant there are thousands of people that in the past were entitled to receive care, no longer do. There's also been squeezes on what we pay to our providers of care, how we support our carers themselves. The amount of money we spend on that has actually gone down. And I think it's short-sighted, because if we don't support the carers well enough, then they can't keep people at home where they want to be, where they prefer to be, and where it actually, in the long run, saves us vast amounts of money. And I think, the elderly people these days, a lot of them are suffering so much with the rising power costs in particular, the rising costs of living, that they are genuinely having to make a decision about whether to put the heating on or buy an extra loaf of bread. And that's, they're the people that I want to represent.
Thanks, Jenny. I'm Sam Riches from the Green Party. I've represented Lancaster East for the last 4 years. I'm hoping to represent it for the next 4 years as well. I'm one of 2 Green county councillors. The other one is from Lancaster Central, another seat that we're hoping to hold. Although there are only 2 of us, we've had a big impact on the county council. There have been times when it's felt like we are the opposition, actually. And one of the points that I'd like to raise is around the living wage. So I was absolutely horrified to discover when we were putting forward our budget amendments this year that a fifth of the county council employees currently earn less than the living wage, which is only £7.45 an hour. We were supported by both the Lib Dems and Labour in our amendments. Unfortunately, the Tories voted it down, but we have succeeded as Greens in bringing forward the living wage to Lancaster City Council, and it's something that I really want to see moved on with the County Council under a new administration. As Greens, we're very happy to work across party boundaries. We're keen to see good policies being enacted and to see things which are a waste of money and counterproductive not happening. The big problem for us in Lancaster is the link road, which I'm afraid it seems every other party supports. I confidently predict that if it's built, if the judicial review doesn't succeed in stopping it, if it's built, within a year of it opening, it will be seen to be a vast waste of money. It won't cure the congestion problems in Lancaster city centre that has so often been claimed, and it will have very, very little impact on jobs. Again, it's very wild estimates are being put forward about jobs that's being created. I echo what Jenny says about jobs needed for young people, but it shouldn't just be any kind of job. It needs to be jobs which are productive and are environmentally beneficial, not environmentally destructive. We need to take our responsibilities seriously as a county council in relation to reducing carbon emissions in particular. And things like building new roads has the opposite effect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm County Councillor Bill Winlow, represented Preston West for the last 4 years. I've spent most of my life in academia, but in the last 7 or 8 years before I got onto the county, I was working as a medical writer, and that's very much a business situation, so I have a fairly wide range of experiences. And prior to coming over here, I was also a councillor in Leeds, and I was leader of the opposition there for several years. Now, we're talking about Lancashire, as opposed to what Ian was saying. We are talking specifically about Lancashire today. And there are several things that have been troubling me over the last few years. One of them is that I do not believe, although Jeff will doubtless disagree with me, that we have supported vulnerable people properly. I've felt all along that we need to care for our carers better, because if we don't care for the carers and they become ill looking after someone who is, perhaps in the case of dementia, then we have a much more serious problem to handle as a county council. We ought to be looking at ways of trying to keep people, particularly those with dementia, in their own homes for as long as possible, because they need to have around them something familiar. And that helps. There's no way to stop the disease at the moment, any of the dementias. So they need to have familiar surroundings. Now that's going to cost money, as are things like better public and community transport. As is early intervention. Now we've had mentioned already that we are not looking at people with moderate social care needs anymore. And I know that's a nationwide issue, but if you don't classify people with moderate needs, you can't intervene early. We don't have early intervention, which means the problem is worse by the time we get to deal with it. So we have to find a way of doing with that. So somehow, we are now faced with further cuts of around about £250 million over the next 4 years in our council budget. We've got to find ways of dealing with that. We've got to deliver long-term cost reduction at the same time as retaining our services. Personally, I would have done a lot more about renewable energy on this council in order to reduce our costs and also to make a bit of money that we could use elsewhere. We need to carry out a feasibility study to determine the scale of opportunities available for county buildings to actually generate their own energy. We could do with a strategic energy partnership, and I want to look at all of those things if we're in a position to do so. And we need to be really radical in terms of the services we offer. We need to create more shared services. I know we already have some, quite a lot in fact, but we need more. We need to work more with other councils, both districts and other counties, to ensure that we share the services and cut the costs so we can continue delivering services. We probably need to look at mutually owned enterprises, and we may need to work with the private sector more than we already do. So we have to be radical, we have to look at all of those things. And what I'd like to see us do is, by the LEP, to encourage green technologies in Lancashire, because we haven't developed them, and there remain significant unfulfilled opportunities in that area. There's a great deal I think needs doing, and it's a question of redefining council priorities for the future in ways that I think are more supportive to the people of Lancashire. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm Jeff Driver, I'm leader of the County Council. My background is local government. I worked in local government for 35 years, and my particular background is local government finance, which has been quite helpful in dealing with the problems that we've had recently in Lancashire County Council, as all other local authorities have done. I'm sure we'll be able to debate some of the issues that have been raised later, and I'm sure some of you will have questions. So I'll just make, rather than deal with any particular points that were raised, particularly by Jennifer and Bill, I'll just make two comments. First of all, one is they have a lot to say about what they would like to do, but they have very little, if really nothing at all, to say how they would do it. And it's very easy to say we would do this and we would do that without actually setting out how it would happen. The other thing is that absolutely amazes me from what Jennifer and particularly Bill have said this morning, they seem to have a very limited idea of what is actually going on in the County Council now and what we're actually doing. What I would ask people to judge us by is look at our record, look at what we've done in the last 4 years. In those 4 years, we will spend £250 million less, £250 million less on administration and bureaucracy. And that's meant that, unlike most local authorities, not only in Lancashire or the North West, indeed in the whole of the country, we haven't been making serious, significant reductions in services. What we have done, we have reorganised services to make them more efficient, more effective, so that we can actually keep the promises we made in the election 4 years ago, that we would take care and look after the most vulnerable people of Lancashire. And that is what we have done, despite particularly what Bill said in terms of things that we haven't done. We've actually spent millions of pounds extra on the young people of Lancashire. For example, we set aside a fund of £10 million to create apprenticeships. So over a 5-year period, 5,000 young people will go through our apprenticeship scheme. We've set aside £5 million for concessionary travel for young people to enable them to get to work and or training or job interviews. And the young people themselves actually designed that scheme. In terms of the removing the moderate classification for people who need assistance from the County Council, yes, we have removed that classification. It has actually saved us £2.8 million. But what we've done, we've actually replaced it with far, far more effective and useful ways of helping people who are in that category by investing significant sums in early intervention and prevention. The sort of thing that Bill said we should be doing, he clearly doesn't know that's exactly what we're doing in terms of the extra money we're spending. And as far as people with disabilities are concerned, in terms of adults with disabilities, we've created 5 super top-of-the-range centres for respite care, and we've spent £13 million on renovating every single day centre that we have in the County Council's ownership. Things that should have been done years ago. And as far as children with disabilities are concerned, we made a promise, and we've kept that promise. We took over the Aiming High programme. The government had cut £3.5 million a year, and we've included that in our base budget. Most local authorities have actually cut it. We've included it in our base budget, and we've included £7 million to create 4 top-of-the-range respite care centres for children with disabilities, so that the carers can have that respite break. So I would say to people, look at our record. And in addition to doing all that and cutting out all the waste, we froze the council tax for 3 years, and now we've reduced it by 2% in our last year, which makes the average taxpayer in Lancashire £520 better off, and it's left £100 million in the local economy for people to decide how they will spend it, rather than giving it to us by way of council tax.
Well, thank you all very much to the candidates for making their opening speeches. What we'll do now is a few questions which have been sent in by our readers. I'm just going to take a couple of those. I'll begin here with a question that we've had sent in by Alan Davison of Preston. It touches on a point which was made by a couple of the candidates here. He wants to know what the panel's view is on the living wage. Obviously something which has been a topic of debate in the election. Now, Jennifer, maybe if I could start with you.
Yes, it is one of Labour's pledges to introduce the living wage for LCC staff. The amount of money that it will cost to raise the 20% of staff that are not yet on the living wage is £2.4 million per annum. I've already spoken to officers about it. We've got the figures, and we've started working on a way forward to actually make sure that we can find that £2.4 million. Jeff will tell me that it's pie in the sky. It isn't. Actually, lots of authorities have brought in the living wage for their staff. Almost all of them are Labour authorities. Not many of them as big as Lancashire, but quite a number of them have found. I've talked to the leader from Newcastle and the leader from Barking and Dagenham, and they've given me vital information on how this can be achieved. And once we've rolled it out to our staff, we intend to introduce it to our commission contracts as well.
Okay, so Jeff, if this can be done in Newcastle and Barking and Dagenham, can't it be done in Lancashire?
First of all, I agree with Jennifer's figure for the immediate impact of introducing the living wage is £2.4 million. However, the knock-on effect of that, which Jennifer and I could debate, but the officer's estimate of the knock-on effect of that is £25 million per annum that will be added to our pay bill. The most interesting thing that Jennifer said in her little presentation then, that I hope you all picked up, is an acceptance of £2.4 million, but we have begun looking at how we can find it, and that is the typical response of Labour, and it's what I referred to earlier. They're good at saying what they would like to do, but they don't say where they're going to fund it. Now, if it's £2.4 million, even if it is only that, and I would tell you it's £25 million per annum, it has to be found. And it will have to be found either by increasing council tax, which is what Labour are extremely good at, doubling it in the last 12 years of their administration, increasing it by 17% in their last 4 years of their administration, but it will have to be found. And I've read the Unison magazine, winning the league, and Cardiff introduced the living wage, and there's a young lady in there who's a cleaner, and she said initially she was absolutely delighted that the living wage had been introduced, because it meant that her pay increase, her pay every week was a little bit more, and she had more to spend. However, Cardiff are now having to balance their budget, and they've committed themselves to the living wage. and they are now having to cut jobs to fund it and reduce hours. So that young lady who's got the living wage, she now says, I actually get less in my pay packet at the end of the week because they've cut my hours. So my hourly rate is higher, but the weekly wage is lower. And Lancashire would face that in spate if we had to find £25 million.
Jennifer, just quickly, you want to come back on a couple of points?
Well, simply that we will not be following the Cardiff model, whatever Jeff keeps
What
trying to
will we
put words
follow,
in our
Jennifer?
hands. We'll follow the Newcastle model before we follow the Cardiff model, and that one works. And it works without costing jobs. And the fact is, we've got to find £250 million. In fact, when we take your 2% election bribe into account, that figure goes up to £280 million that we've got to find. So finding an extra 2.4 for good, hard-working staff is, in my opinion, it would be wrong not to do it.
Okay, Bill with that.
I'm inclined to support Jenny on this one. I mean, Jeff has taken the extreme case, £25 million, which I don't happen to believe, unless, of course, you haven't had discussions with the trades unions beforehand, because the major problem can be that they wish to retain their differentials. And that's the issue at the bottom of all of this, that if the differentials are retained, then you could face a bill of 25 million. If that can be squared off legally, then we need to, we should be supporting people on the living wage. They're our employees, for goodness sake. They're people that work for us in Lancashire and provide our services. And it's only right that we look after them as well as we can. I would also say that we are in for a very hard time. We all know that, and it will be a question of resetting priorities within the budget. We can't go and overspend, we're not allowed to. We can't go bust, we've got to find ways around, as I explained at the beginning. But I believe that if we can do it for 2.4 million, we ought to be looking at it. And Jeff, it's all very well to say it's not 280 million now, but it's your administration that have done that with the rather irresponsible council tax cut that you came up with. It was the wrong thing to do. It was an election bribe, and you know it. And what's more, most of your group didn't even know it was happening before the meeting.
Okay, Bill. Right, sandwiches.
Thank you. Yes, so Bill's absolutely right. This figure of £25 million arises from the idea of keeping differentials, and other councils are looking at this in a completely different way. It's possible to pay the people who are at the bottom of the pay scale an additional elements of pay rather than putting their pay grade up or increasing the amount of money that their pay grade attracts. So I think that Jeff is being somewhat disingenuous in claiming that the inevitable result of bringing in the living wage is a £25 million pay bill each year. What I think we need to be really clear about, though, is it's not just a question of being a responsible employer. It's also about the benefits that are gained to the people who receive the services, which is largely, we're talking about the care sector. We're talking about people who are looking after the oldest and most vulnerable members of our community. Those are the ones that are currently earning less than the living wage. And there is really, really good evidence from the Living Wage Foundation that people who are paid the living wage have lower absenteeism, they have lower rates of sickness, they do not change jobs as frequently, so you don't have this issue of who have I got coming into my home and yet another new face. And also they feel more positive about working in their job. And this is true even where their overall income isn't changed, because many of the people who are on the living wage will also get working tax credits. And so as one goes up, the other one will come down. But the money that you are earning coming from your employer is more secure than the money that you are reliant upon from the state, because you're subject to all sorts of things there with benefit caps and so forth, people being shifted onto universal credit. There's lots and lots of things happening there which are totally outside the control of either the employee or the employer. And so the living wage is tremendously important about giving us a well-motivated workforce who deliver the quality of service that our community really deserves.
Can we really afford it, though?
Yes, we can, because if we didn't spend, for example, £120 million on building a loop road for 1/3 miles from the M6 to the McDonald's by the shrimp roundabout, then yes, we could. It's a question of
Wanted
priorities.
to have a say on that.
No, I think it's important because, first of all, the people sat at the table of the council were talking about increasing the living wage for people who work for Lancashire County Council. I work in the private sector, and there's been no issue, or there's been no concerted effort to say that everyone, irrespective of who they work for, whether the private and public sector should be forced or should be encouraged to receive the living wage. We mentioned very early on...
If it's rolled out to our commissioned contracts, that would include people in private companies.
Okay, the only way to pay for that is to raise council tax, and it's something...
Or reduce profits.
We just let Ian give an answer.
Thanks for that. And we mentioned right at the very beginning that some of the national issues really shouldn't be talked about on a local level. The reality of it is that Labour admitted that the migration boom actually drove down wages and living standards. So Labour actually admitted that, drove down wages and living standards. I think it was alluded to earlier that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation last year, for example, in the 2012 report, indicated that 6.1 million people are living in poverty in working households. For the first time ever, there's more people in working households that are living in poverty than those that are unemployed or workless. So I think it's important to say that it's great talking about raising the level of pay to a living wage for local authority. But I think this is going to be a wider debate. Everyone's got to be included in this.
So can I just clarify exactly what your position is on?
Well, I think it's my position based on what I just heard at the table. But my position is, as a local employer in the private sector, that we can't be exclusive and talk about raising the level of wage just for local authority.
And as a representative of the UK Independence Party, what's your view?
My view is that the wages should go up for everyone. Living standards should go up for everyone.
Yeah, but not to increase the differentials all over the place. You've got to keep things right.
Listen, my job,
if you do that, you just make everybody at the bottom worse off.
Absolutely. Okay.
David, can I just comment on something
Just quickly.
that I think needs to be said on behalf of the staff of Lancashire County Council, because my three county council colleagues have implied in some way that because the staff doing really important job looking after some of our most vulnerable people are not performing that function properly because they're not paid the living wage, and that I found that from the three of you.
Nobody said that. Nobody said that.
At least
You're
one
distorting things as usual.
At least I didn't interrupt you, Bill.
No,
I know when you're lecturing to people, you have the floor and you just override everybody else. But please leave it alone. The people, the staff of Lancashire County Council are doing a really important job, and it's important that they are appreciated, not like my three colleagues did, implying that they need to be paid the living wage. And then the final point I make, to illustrate that some of my colleagues don't really understand what local government finance is about, because Sam said, as an alternative, we could use the £120 million that we are spending on the link road. The £120 million is capital money. We are forbidden by law to use it to spend on anything else.
Okay, thanks very much. Lady at the back.
Thank you. Melanie Close from Disability Equality North West. We're a disabled people's organisation based on Church Street in Preston. First of all, just for information, Preston City Council is a living wage employer, and lots of the local organisations such as ours in Preston have signed up to their website. That was just for information because nobody mentioned Preston. I acknowledge, Jeff, what you say. Lancashire County Council supports some disabled people very well. The problem that we have is that your strapline for Lancashire is a place where everyone matters. And I can't help but notice, because it's at the side of me, even on the banner, it says that you support over 620 disabled people a year. The problem with that is that there are 20% of the adult population in Lancashire has an impairment or a long-term condition. In Preston, that is 26,000 people. 620 is not a lot of people. The decision to cut the council tax, I have to say, for an organisation that has a steady stream of people coming in that are no longer eligible for Lancashire County Council services because they don't meet the facts criteria, We know that what's in place, and you might not know, Jeff, but we know that what is in place is not sufficient for those people. So what I want to know is, will the, particularly probably from the other parties, is will you increase the council tax and use that money to, first of all, I'm not saying what you should do with it, but to look at where those gaps are, particularly for the people that you're not supporting, and use some of that money. Because I know now that the council tax has been reduced, whoever gets into leadership next, it's going to look very, very unpopular when they have to put it back up again. And your average person on the street will want to know why it's going back up. But I want to know is, will you put it back up, or will you use some of that money to support disabled people that aren't currently being supported?
Thank you. Jeff, do you want to take that one?
Well, I'm not sure of the entirety of that was a question to me, but yeah, I can answer the bit that relates to me. I mean, I turned around while you were speaking, looked at that. I mean, that's clearly a misprint, isn't it? 620. We support over 620 adults with disabilities. I mean, that is clearly a misprint. The county council spends every year the best part of £250 million on 36,000 people, and there are in Lancashire 1.2 million people. So it's absolutely vital that we get those services right, and the cost of those services right, not just for everybody else who's got to pay for it, but for those people themselves, so that the services are sustainable throughout for the foreseeable future. Because I think, as everybody knows, County Council faces a very, very serious financial situation. I'd be very interested to know, you said that we provide services for some people with disabilities. I'd be very interested to know what services or which disabled people you think we don't provide services for, because as I said in my introduction, we have reduced the criteria for moderate, but we've replaced it significantly, costing us a lot more with...
It's the word replaced. It hasn't been... There's something there, but it hasn't replaced what was there.
Well, what hasn't it replaced?
Well, it's not for this forum, but honestly, we're down the road, Jeff. Come and see us
you've
and have the conversation.
No, with respect, you've raised the question in front of all these people. So if you've got something, what have we not replaced?
Okay, but remember, I'm not a politician. I work for a local charity, so I may not be as articulate as the people on the top table. One of the things that Lancashire County Council has done is to set up to pay for Help Direct. So Help Direct is an information signposting service. It's a really good service, and we work with the staff. If you ask the staff, and this comment was made to me by a Help Direct staff member last week at the Health Mailer, "Oh, it's lovely to see you, Melanie. If we hear the word disability in a phone call, we redirect them to you." Now, that Help Direct is not a replacement for a support service. You don't monitor how many disabled people are using that service. So it's a good information signposting service, but it is not a replacement for the services that people that have got moderate and lower level needs. It's not a replacement for them.
Well, I'm sorry, but it is.
It isn't, because they don't know how many disabled people are using that service. It might be that 99% of the people ringing are all non-disabled that just actually don't want to use the phone directory. It's a good service, but it's not a replacement.
I'm just conscious that we hear from the whole panel. So
it is a replacement, and obviously the person didn't give you the full information. There's something like 161,000 calls since where the Help Direct service started, and 83% of those had a follow-up visit or call.
But how many are disabled people that would have been classed as moderate?
Most, well, I don't know how many would have been classed as moderate. I don't think anybody knows how many would have been classed as moderate. But 83% of them had a further visit, and after that further visit, over 99% of them were happy with the service that they were then given. But it's not. Well,
that shows it's a good information service. It's not a replacement for social care, because you don't know how many disabled. You don't know where all those people now are. because nobody's monitoring them anymore.
You might not think you're as articulate as us, but you're really good at interrupting when we're speaking, aren't you? There's a danger that you're actually insulting our staff as well, because you're implying that the staff just take a phone call and just pass it on. The staff are responsible people who talk to the person who's rung in and decide where the care should be given. And as I said, after the 83% had had a follow-up visit, well over 99% of them were perfectly happy with the service they then received.
Jeff, can we get into the question with regards to the council?
Yeah, we've
Can I
absolutely...
say though, please don't say I'm insulting Help Direct staff, because we work very closely with them. They're a good service. I just don't see it as a replacement, that's all. And I'm sorry I was interrupting.
Well, we have absolutely no plans to increase the council tax. We set out our strategy when the comprehensive spending review was announced by the government in 2010, immediately after the general election, and we did a 3-year budget rather than just rely on the traditional 1-year budget, which meant that we could bring in all the changes that were necessary in a well-ordered and well-managed way. So we've no intention of increasing the council tax. Bill, when he says you've added to that because the savings that might need to be made because you've reduced the council tax, that is the wrong way of looking at it. I mean, I understand there will be less income coming in, but the reductions that will be needed are not affected by the income that's coming in. The reductions are the reductions. And we've no plans to increase the council tax, but I'd be delighted to hear what Bill and Jennifer have to say.
Bill?
I'm not planning to increase the council tax, certainly not in the coming year, because of course we already have a budget. But there will have to be a 3-year budget to follow that, as you well know, especially if we're going to cope with the cuts in income that are coming. And Jeff, you have cut 7.5 million a year out of the budget recurrently. And you know it, out of the income, out of our revenue. So we have that problem, and somebody will have to pick it up eventually and cope with it. And you've set a lovely trap for everybody, haven't you? And it's quite deliberate. So basically, once we've all had a look at the books and figured out where we're going, then we can actually answer that question. At the moment, nobody can answer it, not even you in your brilliant endeavours to belittle absolutely everybody else around this table. And I may say, to suggest that we are belittling our own staff, I think is an absolute disgrace.
Okay, Jennifer and me, are you being set in a trap here?
Well, yes, I suppose I would have to agree with Bill on that, because obviously it was an election play to reduce the council tax by 2%. And Bill's quite right, the budget's been set and certainly won't be doing it this year. But it is an option for future years, there's no doubt about it, because the cuts that are coming down the line, we will have to rearrange our services and deliver them in a completely different way. We haven't had the option to look at the books the way that Jeff has. That's the first thing we'll be doing when we come back in here on the Tuesday after the bank holiday weekend. We've got meetings already set up with officers to look at the books, and that's what we'll be doing. I don't really think I want to say anything.
Sandwiches, councillor
Sadly, I don't think the Green Party are going to be in a position to actually form the administration.
Would you like to see them?
And well, what Bill said was absolutely right. The budget's been set. It's not as if we could come in on the day after the bank holiday and announce that we're putting council tax. You can't do that. It's the next opportunity you have to look at council tax will be next February. What I would say about council tax is I think it's a very flawed and problematic way of raising revenue. One of the things that I'd really like to see is the potential to have differentials, that seems to be a buzzword today, so that you can raise different levels of, you can put a different level of increase or decrease on the different property bands. Obviously, to reclassify all of the properties is an absolutely massive job, and I can't see any central government choosing to do that for a very long time indeed. But to have some changes to the laws around local government finance would be tremendously helpful, so that we could look at increasing. I would like to see higher rate properties being able to be to have a higher levy on them than we have at the moment, and potentially leave the lower bands as they are.
Thank you. Thank you. Ian?
An absolutely fantastic opportunity to stress the 2% cut that the Tories have made in this year's council tax. The reality of it is, if they were setting a trap, Labour fell straight into it. Because in Preston City Council, for those that don't know, those that do, the 2% cut was offset by a 2% increase by the Police and Crime Commissioner and a 2% increase by Preston City Council. David Cameron was in the area last week, and he said they've frozen council tax, that's the Tories, every year now, and cut it by 2%, putting £100 million back into the Lancashire economy via people's pockets, and saying you can spend the money better than we can. Guess what? Labour have decided you can't.
How has it gone back into the pockets?
David Cameron said
no increase. What money has gone back into somebody's pocket?
I'll finish with you. So Labour put their council tax element up by 2%. So they're saying effectively, in my mind, in my personal mind, that they don't trust you, us, with our money, and so therefore the actual reduction of 2% is actually only 0.9% now. So we're talking about council tax as if it's a great opportunity here to put back into the community, when the reality of it is, as Jennifer already said, when and if they get into power on the Tuesday after the bank holiday, the first thing they'll do is say that we've laid the foundations to put the council tax up far beyond, above and beyond that which has already been increased.
Okay. There's a gentleman in the audience here now who wants to make a point.
Yeah, referring to the disability section, a few years ago, and I'm talking to Jeff myself, you closed down the one at Bamber Bridge. There was an uproar about that one. Now, you're not just closing one, but you're closing a lot of disabled centres down. Now, my wife ended up in hospital a long time ago, which is upsetting because she actually had depression. She just had a baby and she ended up in Whittingham, closed down. Amydale is in the same boat. Now, as far as I'm concerned, all these disabled centres are closing down because of the cutbacks. And obviously, what you said about disabled people on TV upsets a lot of people. Now, when you come to everything else, you're spending money unnecessarily. You've actually had a car park built out on Bluebell Way. That, to me, was a waste of money.
And me.
Now, that money could be used for other researches, but it wasn't. Now, when it comes to money, money is there from our pockets to put into the county council to be used for other researches like not-cutting service down like buses, services, where people are trying to get into town and the buses are being cut all the time. So I can understand, I mean, all the panels here right now, and it's the first time I actually can speak out in front of everybody due to the fact that there's too many cuts in a lot of services, and then when you get in power, you're going to do a lot more cuts, and it's wrong. There's people out there who are struggling, and this one-bedroom tax thing, it's ridiculous. Because you're making them go on the streets. We've got, in 2014, we're going to get a lot of these migrants coming from Europe. There's no work. You're talking about young kids, apprenticeships. Where are the apprenticeships going? Because the only thing we've got is retail. We've no engineering anymore. We've not got anything left. So you tell me, where are these apprenticeships going? There's nothing coming back to us.
Do you want to answer the question then?
I would like to ask, or other panel really, is what we're doing with the access money that is put into the council. Why is it not put into the areas where they need them?
Bill, could I bring you with it?
I think a great deal of money is put into services. The problem is that everything has been cut. I mean, a 220 million cut over the last 3 or 4 years has been quite hard to absorb for everybody, and that's, I mean, Jeff would admit that, and that's no attack on anyone, it's difficult. The problem is that we somehow have got to set our priorities. There are certainly certain statically things that we've got to do. But to me, it seems that schools, health, social care, children and young people are all the things where the most of the money ought to be going, and it is. And within a limited budget, you can only do a certain amount. I think we all admit that. We're all in that situation together. Now you're saying that there's only retail in this county. That's not true. We've got a huge amount of engineering still in Lancashire. And one of the things we need to be doing...
Where are they?
BAE. There's a whole lot of it in Birmingham. There's a whole lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, but you just said BAE. Where's the rest of them? I mean,
Well, you may have heard...
I'll tell you something now. There's no cotton industry. There's no steel industries.
Well, that's
They've
true.
they've all
don't deny
disappeared. No, my lad, he's actually trying to get a job.
Yeah. But
And
just
he
a minute.
can't get a job because there is nothing out there for him to except retail.
I agree with you at the moment, but we still have a large engineering sector. Basically, there are places, we mentioned BAE, we've got the enterprise partnership coming in, the local enterprise partnership. That should create jobs. The whole point is that it will create jobs, particularly if, for example, the Preston City deal comes off. We're stuck in a situation until the economy of Lancashire develops better. I would hope within 2 or 3 years we'd actually see the spin-off for that. There's a few other problems you're going to have come with it though, because you're going to end up with an awful lot more development of roads and housing in the area. So these things are all tied together, but it's very important for Lancashire that we have those apprenticeships, so that when the jobs are available, the youngsters have got jobs. You know, we've got people trained to go into those jobs, and that's what's behind it, and that's not something I would quarrel with.
Okay. Jennifer, could I just bring you in? The gentleman's obviously asking where his lads can get a job from. Any ideas?
Well, we do need a heck of a lot more investment into the economy. That's really what we need. And Bill mentioned the LEP, and it is doing a far better job than the majority of LEPs across the country. But we don't get enough money from the government to actually do what we would like to do. And we need to look at ways of bringing more money into the county. And I think possibly one of the ways to actually, we can use some of our own pension funds, for example, to start building infrastructure projects. And I would like to see any big projects that LCC commissions, that they go to a company and the company guarantees that there will be a certain number of apprentices, and proper apprentices, skilled apprenticeships that mean something. I think we need to talk more to the schools and colleges to make sure that the young people that are leaving school are actually work ready. And we need to talk to small businesses. I had a meeting with small businesses recently. They didn't know anything about the economic partnership. We need to work far, far more together as partners, both small and large, for the good of Lancashire.
Okay, thank you. Ian?
I find it absolutely amazing that we talk about things like increasing living wage, Bill talked about support for vulnerable people, Sam talked about the rising cost of living, primarily driven by energy costs. I've got to say that's got through to wind farms, things like that. Bill, we talked about £220 million cut in services, support for carers, more money to the county for employment. Why are we sending £50 billion a year in 2014 in overseas aid, when all we've talked about at the moment is how difficult it is to deal with the situation that we've got in the UK? And Bill, is a policy of Lib Dems. Do you agree that we should continue to provide £50 billion in 2014, increasing thereafter every year in overseas
If we could
aid?
just stick to the question.
That is the
I will
question.
answer that.
But the question is, that is the question.
That's your
how we-
question to me, which I've said I will answer in due course. Okay, let's finish the
Sorry,
question.
I'll answer to you. That to me is the answer to your question. Is look at the overseas aid and then redirect some of that money into local services in Lancashire. If you don't mind passing that on to Bill.
Well, obviously what Ian was saying, a lot of money has gone overseas, and that money should be put back into this country, creating industries along straight in and off. See, we all compete with London. London is the main issue. Northwest is absolutely zero. You're talking about BAC, about apprenticeships. That's when you've got, like, say, 20, 30,000 kids who are looking for jobs. They're not going to take 20, 30,000 on. At the end of it all, we haven't got enough vacancies in the area. We've got to think of getting people to say, look, get in your back pockets, let's open a few more industries in the northwest so that we could turn that, so we could put apprenticeships into that, as well as cottage industry. We need employment, and we're not getting it.
Jeff,
We need to dispel a few myths that you raised there in terms of some of the various issues. And I'll come on to the employment issue second, but today, first of all, you talked about closing respite centres. We haven't closed a single respite centre, but you seem to think, because you say it, and say...
What about Bamber Bridge?
What in Bamber Bridge?
The disabled centre in Bamber Bridge was closed 2 or 3 years ago. That you said, we've got to close it to save money.
No, it was closed more than 2 or 3 years ago. It comes back to your point about the car park on Bluebell Way. I agree with you. It was a waste of money. It was built by the previous administration, not by us. We've had to resolve that problem when we came into power. But let's talk about the employment. This administration has put £45 million extra into creating jobs through the point that Jennifer and Bill have said about the LEP, which is working very successfully. We're one of the last ones to get the LEP status, and it's now one of the best in the country in just a couple of years. So we are doing the very things you say. And this myth about there aren't any engineering jobs, there are 83,000 people in Lancashire employed in advanced manufacturing, over 20,000 people employed in the aircraft technology. So there are the jobs there, but we've got to make sure that the next generation of people to fill the jobs that are there now, never mind create more jobs, have got the necessary skills to do it. I mean, Bill talked about education, and he's quite right. All the money for education comes direct from the government. I mean, we're just a banker for the education money. But what we've done, excuse me, we've actually put more resources in to get the education standards up, so that people are ready for the jobs that we're all working to create through our LEP.
Yeah,
so please, times are tough.
I know that times are tough, but you see what you're talking about is people who've got good education to go into these places. I'm talking about the underprivileged ones where they have no qualifications and they're going on to sign on every week because there's nothing out there. We're talking about employing everybody into something that they want to do, but there isn't anything. And I can guarantee you could go to a job centre and you'll see young kids going in there, signing on, because there's nothing for them.
Yeah, but the role of the county council is to make sure that the children going through our education system have got the necessary skills, and that's where we're pumping extra money in over and above what the government gives us. And before I finish, I must just make some comment about that Ian said about the foreign aid. Whether or not it is a good thing, whether or not we should be paying it, is one matter. But we have absolutely no control over that. And if we're sorting out our budget for the next 3, 4, whatever years, I can't produce that budget and think, oh, well, it'll be fine because they'll stop the foreign aid and they'll give it to us. We've got to work on the basis of things are, and that's whether or not we give money to foreign countries is way above my pay scale. The government will decide on that, and we will deal with the problems that we've got.
Okay, a couple of quick points.
Well, yes, it's above my pay scale too, because it's a government issue. However, I would say there are certain countries, for example India, where I really wouldn't want to carry on supporting their space program. It doesn't seem quite necessary for us to be giving foreign aid to a country in that position where their economy is developing rapidly. There are other countries that need the assistance, they need the advice to develop their economies so that basically we can train their people so that they get used to using our goods, we'll import our goods from here, and we will get some of their exports because we build up goodwill with them. So it's all involved with that sort of development, as well as ensuring people have a decent standard of living in some of those countries.
Sam?
I just wanted to share with you one example of what Greens have done elsewhere in the country about job creation, and also attacking the energy issue, which Ian put in an extremely simplified way. Kirklees is the place you need to look at, Huddersfield. They've had a fantastic programme there for putting free insulation into people's homes. This has created apprenticeships, it has created jobs, and as Jenny, it fits in with what Jenny was saying about their local, their skills jobs, which then people have got those skills and they can carry on elsewhere. The people who received the insulation didn't have to pay a penny for it. It wasn't means tested, it was done basically, if you were prepared to have people in your house putting in insulation, you can have it. Now, from the Green Party point of view, it lowers carbon emissions, but it doesn't matter. If you don't believe in climate change, what you saw was the difference in your pocket. Your energy demand went down, and hence your energy bills went down. It's these kind of creative solutions that we need to be looking at. I like the fact that Jenny mentioned the idea of the pension fund investments. One of the things you can't do, though, is have a conflict of interest and be investing in infrastructure in your own patch. What you can do, though, is to pair up with the pension fund of a similar county council somewhere else in the country and have cross-subsidisations. These are the kinds of things that, as a member of the pension fund committee, I really want to see. I want to see us getting photovoltaics on to council-owned properties in the same way that Lancaster City Council has done with great success, really brought down the energy bills of the people who are living in those council-owned properties, as well as the energy bills for the council in the swimming pools and big council buildings. So it's those creative solutions that we need to be looking at. There is an answer to this, and it is one that really requires joined-up thinking.
Okay, thanks very much. We're going to have to move on. We've got a lot of questions, so I could just ask if everyone could ask the questions as quickly and give the answers as quickly as we can to make sure we get relevant. I've got Les at the back there to start with.
I'm a trade union member of Unite and an ex-Lancashire County Council employee and now a pensioner. First of all, what I'd like to say, the effects of public cuts in Lancashire County Council are just down the corridor because the men's urinals are blocked. 2 of them. One of them's been blocked for months. And that's because there isn't the people being employed in Lancashire County Council to do simple maintenance jobs. Let's get that straight. Every time there is a cut, every time the council tax doesn't go up, that's a cut. So, in real terms, the cuts do affect people. And if the members' toilets in Lancashire County Hall is not being maintained properly, then I hate to think what's going on in the rest of Lancashire County Council. That's an indictment against yourselves as the present administration. But what I'm really concerned about, in terms when I came here today, is about open government, about knowing what actually is going on. Who's doing what, where in Lancashire County Council. So my question, in effect, is based on one thing, a firm called One Connect.
Yeah.
And One Connect, and I have contacts right the way through Lancashire County Council, from the bottom virtually to the top. I know Jeff, we talked when we came in, not a problem. All right? I'll talk to anyone. But in real terms, what some of the senior officers of Lancashire County Council do, and they may be called old hat or whatever, have said that One Connect is committing rape and pillage within Lancashire County Council. Now, I find that a horrific thing to be told, as a person who's represented staff all his life and whatever. And I have been told by the employees that they are not happy. I can't find someone who has turned around to that company and said they're doing a cracking job. Now then, in that state of play, I have attempted to find out what One Connect is all about, what they do, and where they go, and how the work was actually allocated to them, and whether it complied with the actual state requirements under competitive tendering. And let me tell you, from my point of view, the answer to that is that work was allocated on a preferential basis without due approach to public advert and tender. So my question is, what are you going to do about One Connect?
Jennifer, can I bring you in first? What are you going to do with One Connect?
Well, the first thing I'll be doing with One Connect is actually find out what the contract is that we have with them, because I've never seen the contract either. So that'll be my first job, and from there we'll have to take it from there. But I haven't seen the contract, so I don't know what the state of play is at all.
Jeff, I'm imagining you've seen the contract. What is it?
It's quite amazing all this talk about One Connect, as if, I mean, Les then used the word outsourcing. The vast majority of the staff in One Connect, apart from maybe 10, are actually employees of the county council. They are seconded to work in One Connect, which is a company that we've set up with between the County Council and BT to bring in a new dimension to the way the County Council works. And what you've got to remember is the County Council was an organisation that, and Les himself said it, he's worked here a long time, just increase the council tax. If we want to do something, we'll just do it and we'll increase the council tax. So the council tax doubled in 12 years and increased by 17% in the last 4 years of their administration. Well, you can't carry on like that. And we needed to change the culture of the organisation, and we needed to do it in a way that people would look at it with a different perception. And I mean, and Les asked, well, what's the benefit of One Connect? The benefit of One Connect is that there is a guaranteed £10 million saving to the County Council for the 10 years of the contract. So that's £100 million the County Council is going to save in its administration and bureaucracy, and that's not to be sneezed at. It means you can actually protect services to the front line. And the terminology, and Jennifer can have a look at it if she's in the position to do so next Tuesday. It is anticipated we'll actually save something like £40 million a year rather than the 10 million, which is guaranteed by BT. So it has a lot of advantages, and it's working very, very well, and it's changing the way this organisation works. And it needed to change. It needed to change because we simply kept increasing the council tax all the time. Every time we want to do something else, we put the council tax up.
To touch on some of the points that Les brought in there though, Jeff, he mentioned there about staff being unhappy, he mentioned about the tendering process that went through this. Are those things you...
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to respond to Les on that, because Les knows the County Council is not going to act unlawfully. Of course they've gone through all the proper procedures for tendering. I mean, my friends in Europe, we've gone through all their silly proposals that we have to do through the European Journal and everything. We've done all the things quite properly, and we've come up with a very, very good contract.
Bill, One Connect, what would you like to see done with it?
Well, we're not going to get rid of it overnight, are we? We have a contract for some years. No, I don't particularly wish to get rid of it. I want to make sure it works properly. Now, we keep hearing stories about unhappy staff. And I have asked a few questions about that, but nobody will talk to me about it. Now, is that because they're unhappy, or are you selling me that One Connect is preventing them from talking to you?
Well, yeah, if I could answer that. It's called fear in the workplace, because this business of secondment is very questionable.
I don't think that's questionable. It's been done legally.
It is questionable, because if you think about it, right, if you then argue with One Connect may turn around and say you're not suitable. So you come back to Lancashire County Council under redeployment, and therefore then, after a very short period of time, because it's all been torn to pieces, redeployment, you would end up unemployed. So there is fear in the workplace of anyone saying anything. In any case, the ethos of One Connect is that it is secret. Someone told me that there is an area of County Hall where not even yourselves can get in unless you've got your fingerprints on the appropriate security mechanisms.
Okay.
Now, I didn't know that. Now, whether it's true or not, I don't know.
Right.
But what I'm saying is,
stick to what we
even
do
you
know,
as councillors don't have access. Jennifer said, I don't know what the contract is. You're county councillors and you're telling me, I'm just an ordinary ratepayer now, and you're telling me that you do not know what that contract is? Come on.
We've told you the length of time it runs for.
Oh, that's the
We
only
have
bit
some
you
of
told
the
me.
information about what the contract is.
Well,
Now,
let's...
can I just finish?
Yeah,
Go on.
There may be staffing issues that we need to investigate as a county council, and I would want to do that, given the rumours I've heard. But as I say, nobody has substantiated those rumours, bar a few people who've already left. Now, there may be something in all of that we may need looking at. However, this council is going to face radical change. Are you aware, you must be aware, that our budget is down to around about £750 million, except for education. That's set to one side. It's going to go down to £500 million. So I joined 4 years ago. If I'm still here in 4 years' time, that will mean our budget is now £500 million. It's half of what it was when we joined the council, most of us, any of us sitting here. We're going to have to do something radical. really radical, and that may mean setting up more companies like One Connect and making sure we've got the contracts right, because we cannot go on delivering services the way we have done in the past, because there isn't the money available. Now, if that's the case, you've got to remember, our job is to provide services to the people of Lancashire, and that is our responsibility, and it's what we have to do. So we can't just bury our heads in the sand and ignore the changes that take place. If I'm in a position to do so, I would like to investigate further what's going on with One Connect. But, you know, I need to know, and I need it properly substantiated if any action is ever to be taken.
Okay. So I'm just conscious that we are down to our last 20 minutes now, so we do need to get answers as quickly as we can. Ian and Sam, if I could just bring you in, Ian, first.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sufficiently up to date with what happens with One Connect, but the question I ask from a commercial point of view is if they're making a guaranteed saving to the Lancashire County Council of £10 million per year over 10 years, what's in it for them? What cost, what value is it to them? And I'd say that either there's a significant cost saving at the expense of people, or the county council has been incredibly inefficient and unable to manage that cost saving internally. And the other point is that if those services have been transferred to One Connect, a guaranteed return of £10 million per year to Lancashire County Council, what's happening to the tier of management that in the past looked after the services that BT One Connect are now picking up on? That will bump my questions, Les.
Sam?
Just briefly, I completely share your fundamental concern about the lack of transparency, and unfortunately it doesn't only apply to the issue of One Connect. There's been other issues in my division, for example, about a county council property that was empty when I got elected. It's still empty. Residents have tried to get information about doing a community asset transfer. They've put forward proposals into a tendering process for the sale of that building and have met a wall of silence and are extremely frustrated by that. So I'm afraid that the culture is becoming entrenched, and I want to see that changed. With One Connect, I've heard a lot of complaints about it as well from various levels within the organisation, and also from members of the public who've been ringing up for help to sort of, contact your county council. That's who you get through to, is One Connect. They don't get a good experience. So I'm very pleased to hear that my colleagues here from Labour and the Lib Dems are aware of this and are aware of how much they don't know as well, and we've really got to push forward on this issue and try, as Bill says, to end up with the best service that we possibly can.
So here in Lancashire we've got huge opportunities from renewable energy, not least the offshore wind zone in the Irish Sea, and evidence shows that there's 2 to 3 times more jobs from renewables than there are from shale gas. Yet all we hear about is shale gas and the potential job benefits of that, and actually it can have a very bad impact on existing sectors like agriculture and tourism. So I was wondering, what would you do to enable Lancashire businesses, jobs and manufacturing sectors to really take advantage of the opportunities from renewable energy? And also, as a supplementary, if you could state what your policy is on shale gas, seeing as Lancashire is the ultimate decision-making power on that with the renewable planning.
Okay, Sam, I'll bring you in first in this moment.
Well, I can easily answer the second part of Helen's question, which is the Green Party has huge reservations about shale gas. And we often, along with the idle toad, remember, Tom Sharratt, that is the name of his party, we often seem to be the only political parties that are represented at public meetings on this issue, which is something I found profoundly worrying. In terms of the issue of investment into renewable energy, I think you're absolutely right, and this is where one of these kind of twinning arrangements with the pension funds can work really well. Recently the pension fund has invested in a solar farm in Oxfordshire, which is terrific, and I was really delighted to hear about that. Due diligence was done, of course, and it would be great to see more of that kind of thing, but in particular to be encouraging other bodies, particularly pension funds, to be investing into Lancashire rather than simply one-way traffic as we seem to have at the moment.
Thanks very much. Jennifer, hydraulic fracturing, shale gas, what's the Labour view on that?
The Labour view at the moment is that with Carolyn Flint, who's the shadow energy spokesperson, and her team set 6 criteria before they would be satisfied that shale gas was actually, fracking was actually safe to do. If you listen to what Quadrilla say, they say those criteria have been met. One of them is, well, there's things like well integrity, continuous monitoring for any seismic movements, things like that. I think, to be perfectly honest, I think we'd be going against the tide if we came down on the side that says no fracking at any cost. Because if it is proved to be safe, and if the amount of gas that's alleged to be underground is there, then it could solve our energy problems for the next few years, instead of having to be reliant on Russia and the Middle East and being held to ransom there. What I would like to see, if it was ever passed as permissible, safe, that I would like to see some community benefit to come from the company that's actually doing the fracking, and there would be a fund set up which could be managed by the county council, whoever's in control, and I would like part of that fund, and I'm not talking about a few £1,000s, I'm talking about a share in the profits. Would be we could invest in renewable energy, because although there's allegedly a lot of gas under there, it is finite. We do need to look for other sources. I agree entirely with what Sam said. Even if fracking doesn't go ahead, one of my pledges is to invest in renewable energy, because I think it's the way we have to go. But it would secure jobs, and it would secure good apprenticeships for the young people. But where we actually get the investment funding from, because even the pension funds are not everlasting, I think we need more government support, quite frankly.
Question of fracking, I don't disagree with what Jennifer said, but just add that there are three agencies, main agencies that are involved in deciding whether fracking can go ahead. There's the Environment Agency, the Health and Safety Executive, and ourselves. And it's really important to remember what the role of the County Council is. And sadly, and I'm sure you would agree with that, Lancashire County Council's role in determining whether fracking should take place is the minor of those three agencies that have a say. The main people have a say, the Health and Safety Executive, because they've got to determine that any operation is safe, not just to the people here, but to everybody else. And the Environment Agency have a similar but wider role in terms of the effect on the environment. And if one or both those agencies said that fracking is perfectly acceptable for whatever reasons, and the County Council said it isn't, and our reason was something that is a responsibility of the other two agencies, not only would any appeal be overturned, but the County Council will be awarded costs. So we've got to act within the law, and we've got to be seen to be acting reasonably. So, as Jennifer said, is it something I said, Jennifer? So as Jennifer said, the prime concern for everybody looking at fracking is safety. Particularly, I don't mean that against the people who are actually doing it, but particularly to the people of Lancashire. And we would want to be satisfied as a county council that the Environment Agency and the Health and Safety Executive have done their job properly and analysed it fully.
Okay, thanks. We've 10 minutes left, but Bill, come.
Yes, I put a motion to the County Council just before Christmas on fracking, which got all party support, for which I was very pleased, I have to say. Probably the one and only time, Jeff, that we voted together.
Broke the habit of a lifetime.
Broke the habit of a lifetime, but well, so did you. Makes a change. Basically, what we proposed was that if we have to put up with fracking, and I have to say fracking is something that I am not in favour of, on the basis that it releases methane. Methane is a worse greenhouse gas than CO2, and of course you're going to generate CO2 in the process in any case. So we have a problem, and the problem is this. The problem is obviously that we don't have gas resources. We have not, successive governments have failed this country by not putting enough money into the development of renewable energy sources, and that's why we're in the mess that we are in at the moment over energy. We've got to have an energy mix for the future. Some of it will be gas, some of it will no doubt be nuclear. We need to have an increasing amount of sustainable energy sources. one of the things we want to do is to ensure that the LEP actually gets their hands on some of the development of those resources to provide jobs in Lancashire as part of the development.
So you don't win the Lancashire
This is true, this is true. Shall we say Lancashire Enterprise Partnership, the other LEP? Right, thank you for that. And basically we need to develop those resources in Lancashire to provide jobs and to ensure that the situation is kept good. Can I just say that the motion that we put forward said that we need an industry-specific regulation of hydraulic fracturing here. And the problem is, at the moment, the regulation is actually from 3 sources. From DEP, that's the Department of Energy and Climate Change, the Health and Safety Executive, and the Environment Agency, and of course we are the licensing authority. So it's a really complicated situation. The other thing we wanted out of all of this is there would, if it ever goes ahead, we want absolutely rigorous, regular inspections of every wellhead to make sure that there's good well integrity and there are good community benefits. I don't see that George Osborne ought to be giving cash to the developers to ensure it goes through quickly, and I think we must have local control of whether these things happen or not.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to have to, I know a lot of questions. I've got a gentleman in the back.
I'm a parent with disabled children. I'd like to ask both leaders of the Labour group and the leader of the Lib Dem group what you do about children's respite services, because Jeff has already promised us 40 super units. What would they
I
do?
agree that we need to do a lot more. We need more respite services for the parents. We need to look at the actual finances of that to see what's available and to improve the situation. It's always going to come down to that. But in terms of the parents and the carers, we need to look after them to make sure they're capable of doing the excellent job of looking after those children in the long term. And that's something that's worried me ever since I got on this council.
How much money would you put in?
I can't tell you that till I know what money's available. And that
Jeff's already promised. How much is available?
Well, as you said, and as Jeff's already said, there is money allowed for in the budget for 4 new respite centres. And I'm perfectly happy to support that. I think the difficulty will be where we put the 4 respite centres, unfortunately, because at the present time there are 7 across the county. And I agree, some of them are extremely good and in extremely good condition, but not all of them are. And to build 4 new ones, in one way it's absolutely fantastic, but not everybody is going to be happy, Derek, with where they're sited. That's the problem.
So we've not been told where they will be.
Sorry?
We'd like to know where the new units will be.
Yeah, can I just come in?
We need to talk to parents, don't we?
It's absolutely right. I mean, we do need to know exactly where they are and where they're going to be. But we will do what we did before in terms of consulting the parents and carers of children with disabilities as to what was the best service that they wanted, and we consulted widely, and I can't remember the exact percentage, but it's a huge percentage of the parents and carers who wanted to do exactly what we've said we're going to do. So we have the parents and carers on board. We've committed that money, and I've said not only in terms of the 4 respite centres, the actual Lancashire break time funding, which used to be aiming high, £3.5 million a year, I've guaranteed that while I'm leader of the council, that will be sacrosanct. It's in the base, and we will do it. Problem we have, particularly if Labour take control, you might have to take that £3.5 million or some of it that's on Lancashire break time to fund the living wage, and that's the sort of problem that we're faced with.
Okay, right. I do have 2 questions. That was a question specifically for Bill and Jennifer, and this is specifically for Ian. We've got a question which has been sent in by Jeremy Williamson of Leyland. He's asking specifically to the UK Independence Party representative, obviously in light of the things I think you mentioned at the beginning we discussed on a national level, whether there are any candidates standing for the UK Independence Party in Lancashire who have links to the British National Party or any other similar organisation.
Nigel Farage was on Breakfast TV this morning, and Nigel made it very clear that UKIP is the only party that specifically excludes membership of ex-BNP members, ex-English Defence League members. There's a whole list of people that it specifically excludes.
Is that a new?
It's on every application form. It's on the base of every application form. As Nigel Farage said, is that we haven't got the resources as a relatively new, fastest growing UK political party. We haven't got the resources to vet 1,700 candidates. But what we do expect, and what does happen, is that they sign a declaration to say that they've never been and are not associated with a range of radical parties, which includes the BNP, English Defence League. I don't know the more, but they're all the far left-wing parties.
So for candidates in Lancashire, there is none with that as far as we're aware.
I think it's important to say that.
Give us a name if you find them.
No, with respect to you, I saw that. I heard Nigel Farage as well, and the main emphasis from Nigel Farage's presentation was, we can't vet it. And that's why there are several, perhaps more than several, candidates of UKIP who are former members of...
Can I just make a comment on this? Right at the very beginning, I made a statement saying that negative campaigning in politics is what's driving people away from voting. This is part of the negative campaigning. I searched the internet last night for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I'm not getting to the negative campaigning, but what we're talking about is people with responsibility for children and schools in both Labour and the Conservative Party that have been sent to jail or are currently standing trial for issues around paedophilia. Now, in every single party, in every single area of life, there's people who we cannot legislate for because by their very nature, they're underground. They don't hold their hands up with a banner to say, this is me, this is us, this is what I do, this is what I think. So it's important to remember that if we're going to start engaging in negative campaign, we need to make sure that we're not in glass houses.
Okay, right, and I've got one very last question which I'm going to ask, which has been sent in to us by Jill Swan. It's in relation to Preston Bus Station, a hobby horse I'm sure you'll all be familiar with. Now, it's, the question reads, having sifted through many documents, it is clear that a report into Preston Bus Station recommended the restoration of the bus station and not its demolition. Will he follow common sense and invest the £8.3 million in the capital programme into Preston Bus Station, as requested by Preston City Council, a letter to LCC on the 21st of February from Lorraine Norris? Jeff, if I can ask you that.
Yeah, we've invested that money in, or made that money available in the capital programme. Right at the outset was to build a new bus station in the centre of Preston, because at that stage we've been told that Preston Council had decided to knock it down. Clearly the leftover planning from the Town Barn project. I've made it perfectly clear to Peter Rankin on many occasions, and Peter's accepted that the decision on the future of Preston Bus Station is Preston City Council's to make, and it would almost be improper if Lancashire County Council started telling them what they should do. It's their bus station, they must decide. And I said to Peter, look, you decide what it is you want to do with the bus station, then come talk to us. The £8.4 million was included in the capital programme as a cost to build a new bus station, not to renovate the existing bus station. And I'm no engineer, so I don't know. And there's a huge range in terms of the cost of refurbishing Preston Bus Station. And it starts at a figure a little bit of, well, half as much again as the 8.4 million we've got in. And then the highest estimate is nearer 20 million. So the real cost of refurbishing it will be somewhere in the middle of that. And then, of course, if you do that, you've got an ongoing cost of maintaining a building, which is very expensive to maintain. My personal view about the Preston Bus Station, it's got certain characteristics, and I would see it as a great shame to knock it down. But Preston City Council has got to decide what it wants to do with the bus
station.
station.
So if they asked you to put that money into the budget for restoration, would you put it in?
Yes, we would, provided the cost of real restoration and bringing it up to standard was coped with. But the problem I've got is, I mean, if you go in the bus station and the bus station car park, the lifts frightening, and each lift would cost a couple of £1 million to replace and bring up to modern standards. So the problem we face Because that £8.5 million is not mine, it's not the Cabinet's, it belongs to the people of Lancashire. And we've got to be sure that it's spent properly. So if we just throw it into a pit that hasn't been calculated, and then we spend our 8.4 million, and somebody comes along later and says, oh, by the way, you still haven't renovated it properly, we've hardly done a service to the people of Lancashire. But that 8.4 million is available to renovate Preston bus station, provided somebody's costed it out and said, this is what we're going to do, and this is how much it's going to cost, and the rest of the money will come from there.
Okay.
Can I just intervene on that one?
Sorry, we've just got to get through. I know some more comments from that. Jennifer, very last point.
To be honest, I'll save time because I agree with what Jeff's just said.
So do I. But I mean, basically the thing is crumbling and it's going to cost a huge amount of money to do it. But yes, I agree in general.
And
My only comment would be for the Lancashire Evening Post to start publishing pictures that show exactly the state of Preston bus station. The pictures that you use are incredibly sympathetic, very creative, and when you drive past it, Harris fencing across the front, sections of it barricaded off, it's an eyesore.
Just when you get inside.
And try driving up the ramps, it's ugly hair-raising, particularly driving down again.
Okay, and on that note of unity, I'm afraid we're going to have to end. But thank you all very much indeed for your time. I'm sorry to anyone who didn't get the opportunity to ask a question. The candidates, some of them I know are running off, but some of them might still be here. So if you want to grab them for a word at the end, then I'm sure they'll be willing to speak to you. But thank you all to our candidates. We can just show our appreciation for everyone here. Thank you.